This is Stephen A. Smith this morning touching on the Eric Reid, Malcolm Jenkins fiasco, part 1 of 3 via ESPN and First Take.
Eric Reid is a supporter of Colin Kaepernick and the causes that obviously Colin Kaepernick wants to address. Now, the Players Coalition, their objective has never been about Colin Kaepernick. But the reality is that Eric Reid not only wanted Colin Kaepernick to get a job, he also felt that Colin Kaepernick should have led the talks with the owners. You went on the field. Remember, when they've got those coin tosses, that's the captains that are out there. Eric Reid is no captain. He just arrived on the team. He went out there, didn't let Ron Rivera know, and wanted to make a scene on the football field. Now, Damian, correct me if I'm wrong. I think if you want to get at Malcolm Jenkins, somehow, some way along the lines as football players, you can find a way to do it. So it's not to me an accident or a coincidence that you picked a football field on a Sunday to make this kind of scene.
Points that I want to hit on real quick. The first one is, where he ended was the same exact sort of rhetoric when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee, when every single person that was against it said, why are you doing this on the football field? Why don't you do it when you're having dinner? Why don't you do it when you're out in public? Why does it have to be there? The same reason that Colin Kaepernick took a freaking knee. It's because protest is supposed to, as you said, force a change, put public pressure on officials, but also it makes us uncomfortable. That's what this did with Stephen A. Smith. The other quick thing, and then I want to hear your reaction to what he said, was ESPN today, and I hate this, because I respect everybody on that set. I hate that they turned this into, why did he do it on the football field? Malcolm Jenkins right there, he's not a captain. I heard 4 ESPN media members say he is not a captain, he shouldn't have been in there. That's their first fault with Eric Reid, that they are dying on that hill today, and I do not get it. It's so much bigger than just, well, he's not a captain, he should have been out there, so he's at fault. It's so much bigger than that.
Yeah, it's very short-sighted. Yeah, also, I mean, Eric Reid probably wasn't an activist much before this either, at least not publicly. I'm sure he has his own foundations, a lot of these guys do, so there's activism that way. But so when you're put in a situation where you do have to become this person, yeah, you're not a captain, but you know what? This is a place to do it, maybe, right? Again, these are more distractions. Maybe someone's upset about the avenue in which you do it in. A lot of these players are like, let me just go win a football game. I hear you. I tell you, if I'm focused to play football and my teammate goes out before the coin toss and has a little scuffle, I don't forget how to play football after that. It's weird. There's a lot of scuffles that happen. Sometimes they happen over other stuff. Cam Newton went and talked to his former wide receiver and said, hey, you got something to say now?
Right.
Did that change everything? Yeah, he did that before a game.
No, we applauded him.
But it had something to do with the offseason. So, wait, should he have texted him instead? And secondly, we saw some of the dates of when all this was going down between Jenkins and Reid.
Yes.
2017. It's the end of 2018. So I think he's been saying it behind the scenes plenty. Is he being heard? I don't know. Doesn't look like it.
Let me ask you a question. When someone calls you out, okay, or the opposite, you keep getting called out, do you not have respect for that person for taking the bull by the horns and addressing it with that other human being? Isn't there some sort of respect that needs to be had as well with just addressing it instead of being like, oh my God, I cannot believe that he did this. What a charade Eric Reid had. No, we at the end of the day respect somebody for addressing that problem with that person.
It's age old. You know, every time you run to somebody out in the streets, you've been talking to them or trying to get in touch with them, you go, hey, what's up now? It's addressing someone when you finally see them. You're like, oh, I see you've been dodging me. Like, it's straight up. Like, what else? If you can't talk to someone behind the scenes and out of public eye with maybe email, communications, phone calls, whatever, and nothing is working, you're like, you can't leave here. That's my time. It's the chance to actually bring it up again.
And that's why
I'm making assumptions. I don't know what the communications have been, but it seems like he's been trying.
Yes,
Eric Reid has been trying.
Absolutely. Here's part 2 of Stephen A. Smith's rant earlier today.
And why do you make the scene? For exactly what reason? Because you feel that Malcolm Jenkins and the Players Coalition co-opted the situation. Well, how did they co-opt it? You had your issues in support of Colin Kaepernick. They were saying the issue is bigger than Colin Kaepernick. We appreciate Colin Kaepernick. We spoke to him on many occasions. We tried to get him involved, but nevertheless, he chose not to join with us, which we respect. We are under the impression that Colin Kaepernick's protest led to that meeting with the owners. That is false. Colin Kaepernick protested, but it wasn't until September of 2017 when Donald Trump at a rally in Huntsville, Alabama, said that the players should be fired, that everything stirred. So one could easily make the argument that it wasn't about Colin Kaepernick's protest, because Colin Kaepernick's protest alone, in concert with Eric Reid and others, would not have gotten the owners to the negotiating table. There was nothing about the Colin Kaepernick protest that forced that meeting. So if you're Eric Reid, you know this. And if you know this, why are you acting that way?
So let's go in order here. So he said the issue is bigger than Colin Kaepernick. Yes, Colin Kaepernick would agree to that.
Yeah.
It's about police brutality and black people literally getting shot in the middle of the street by police officers. We agree. The Kaepernick protest didn't lead to the meeting with the Players Coalition and the NFL. False. To say that this all stemmed from the Huntsville, Alabama rally, dude,
What was
all this takes is research. Trump slams Kaepernick for his national anthem protest. Can you tell me when that is? Give me the date.
Where were we? August 31st, 2016.
Exactly. That's what started the entire thing. When he called out Colin Kaepernick by name. So he's referring to a rally. It's just the wrong rally at the wrong time.
Still, if you say Trump went after the kneeling players at a rally, who was kneeling first?
Yes, exactly.
So of course, Colin Kaepernick wasn't kneeling. He wasn't there because they've already blackballed him.
They exiled him.
It's already that's the point. So sure. So are we now giving Donald Trump credit for being an a-hole to spark this whole thing with the Players Coalition? By the way, Colin Kaepernick wasn't the head of this Players Coalition. He wasn't the guy that was actually in the meeting rooms. But he was the source that started the whole thing. He is the catalyst. Sure, so if you can cut off half of the process and say start at any point you want to, doesn't mean it's true.
What this reminds me of is when John Elway was talking about, we offered Colin a contract. He denied that contract. What Stephen A. Smith is doing is exactly what John Elway was doing. They're misleading everybody in their audience with stuff that kind of happened. But let's see if we can bend the truth a little bit. For the Elway example, for everyone that's been living under a rock, they did offer him a contract, but they offered him, instead of $12 million, which he was going to make with the 49ers, which obviously he ended up making, they wanted to offer him $7 million. And this was even before he started kneeling.
Absolutely.
So John Elway, much like Stephen A. Smith, bending the truth.
Bring a fact up out of the actual timeline and just insert it wherever you want.
He's skipping
steps. And this is the last thing. I mean, maybe I'm giving Stephen A. too much credit. This will be the first time.
I actually have one more about
maybe his reason for being this defensive of the Players Coalition, he's like, we're getting somewhere. I want something done. And he's on that, and he's like, I don't want this infighting to destroy everything and we get nothing actually done out of it. So I get that approach, but you know what? It's not very helpful.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
Because he actually touched on that very issue. Part 3.
And I'm being totally transparent here. It was really President Donald Trump. Because if Donald Trump doesn't show up at that rally on September 22nd, 2017 in Huntsville, Alabama, and say I'd fire all those SOBs, Jerry Jones would have never kneeled. And the players wouldn't have locked arms in unison as one entity and brand. And they would have never been at the negotiating table with those owners, because Colin Kaepernick's protest would have been exactly that. But Eric Reid ignores that, and in a process makes a public spectacle of himself, embarrasses himself, and highlights a problem that exists within our community, because every single time somebody black disagrees with somebody else who is black, it can't be a disagreement. It's got to elevate to character assassination where somebody's a sellout, where I see points on both sides.
Okay, so, we had a civil rights movement in this country. One of the main figures anyone ever thinks about is Martin Luther King, even though there was many, countless. So do we give credit to the Klan for being murderous gang of people that consistently killed black folks, dragged them behind cars? Like, if it wasn't for the Klan, the rest of the country wouldn't have realized how racist it is. Or is it the people who led the movement against things like that? It was institutional racism, from our police departments to our government institutions to our representatives, all from the beginning of this country's the founding. So we have a history of doing things a certain way. People fought back, gave their lives for it, and then we got better over it. Do we give credit to the a-holes who were the problem in the first place? So Donald Trump gets the credit for being a piece of garbage and bringing about enough people to say, you know what, I can't stand anymore with this horrible individual. He gets the credit now for being the bad guy who sparked, it hasn't even happened yet, but hopefully sparked the change, not the people who called him out.
That literally went over Stephen A's head as he thought about his point. It went completely over his head that he's actually giving credit to someone like 45, which is a totally fair point on your part. You touch on that, I'll touch on the first part. To say that the kneeling that was done by Jerry Jones, when he literally kneels down arm in arm with his players for about 3 seconds, and then knows where the camera is, right? Kneels down.
Absolutely.
What kind of charade is that?
It's a photo op.
He's applauding Jerry Jones, yet bringing down Eric Reid. I've noticed this real quick, and then I'll let you have the last word. I've noticed this with Stephen A. Smith. There are certain, and I love Stephen A. Smith. He's just wrong on this one thing, and it's okay to disagree on this one thing. It's just a big issue. I have noticed the players that he won't talk smack about and those that he will. I'm starting to notice a trend with Jerry Jones. The ultimate trend, though, and I love this guy, he's a Hall of Famer, is Carmelo Anthony. You will notice who he'll go in on, who will maybe soften to.
All right.
I think it sort of shows what goes on behind the scenes, in my own opinion.
And the final part about the Stephen A. part, he doesn't like it that you have two prominent black athletes who were respected fighting, Eric Reid and Malcolm Jenkins now. Yep. And they both apparently want the same end game to come to play, right? Cool, you don't like it because then it maybe looks bad for the potential movement and the potential change that can happen. I understand all that. People also were upset and they thought that Martin Luther King, and back to this analogy, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, one of them was more like, oh, peaceful, peaceful, peaceful. Another one was more on the, hey, you know what, we're gonna put our fists in their face and we're gonna show them that we are full human beings here. There was parts of that were false too. People like to pit two guys against each other. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King didn't hate each other. But the perception of many people that that's the case. And Martin Luther King also wasn't all on the whole, hey, you know what, we're just gonna lay down. People like to have that perception of him. That's why so many people loved the memory of him. Like, oh, he was the one who would never say, don't do anything. He caused a lot of trouble as far as the establishment was concerned. So when we're gonna automatically pit these two against each other, when sure they had a blowout, sure they had a disagreement, let's see as to why and how it can be finished, and not just go and blame one of them and say, hey, he shouldn't have come and said it that way. He can say whatever the way he wants to. What are we getting to? What's the final end game? And do you care about it? Or do you just care about how it looks? Because it's gonna look bad here now. You know who else looked bad for a while? Colin Kaepernick.
I issue a challenge to both men. I issue both of them in the offseason to come on these very airwaves, sitting on opposite ends. JR and I will be the moderators and have both of them tell each other on air, on the record, to clear up any gray space that we may have what actually transpired. Because not only do we demand the truth, but we also realistically should know what lies underneath between these two. We appreciate everybody watching. YouTube.com/TYT Sports. If you made it to the end of this video, mazel tov. If you want to see more, hit the bell and hit subscribe. Why don't you?